It's funny. I was texting with that.
Okay.
Do disclosures have to wait till tomorrow, or like should they wait till tomorrow? But they're disclosed.
It's a long minute. Oh, that's. Anyway, welcome everyone. We're here tonight at Ida Lee. They are doing work on the dais and the in the room, the chamber. So we're down here tonight. I want to, before we say or do anything else, I want to commend staff for what an amazing job you've done. This is pretty impressive. So thank you very much for all your hard work to get us down here. Our first presentation for tonight is 2025 Arts and Cultural District Banner Design.
Good evening, Council, Madam Mayor. I'm Leah Cozen, Assistant Public Information Officer and Staff Liaison to the Commission on Public Art, here to talk to you tonight about the banners located within the Arts and Cultural District. As you can see here on the map, that district is identified in the light yellow color. In 2021, the Commission on Public Art had requested that banners be installed within the district to help identify it. The blue dots identify poles that were approved that are owned by Dominion. The green dots were approved town poles, and the orange dots were approved for future installation. The banners that were installed included this logo that you see here, created by Stilson Green. It was presented to the council in February of 2020. And as you can see, this is what it looked like when they were first put in place, and this is what they look like today. So they went from a bright yellowish orange to a pale white, where the logo is also starting to fade. So they're definitely in need of replacement. In front of you are at least 3 of the, that should say 12, or I'm sorry, it should say 14, but it says 12. But there are 14 approved images by the Commission on Public Art. They decided that they were going to issue a call to artists last February or last month, asking for new artwork that would help depict different areas of the town, be a little bit more relevant than the logo. We received 52 submissions, and again, COPA selected 14. They will replace the 24 by 12 portrait-oriented banners that are currently in place. So the motion before you is to either approve the 14 new designs that you have inside of your packets. Of course, you can always deny the resolution or offer an alternate motion. I'm available to answer any questions you may have, as well as the COPA Chair, Jeanette Ward.
Thank you. Could you go back to the map?
Yes.
You said the blue were.
The blue dot signifies the approved poles that are owned by Dominion Power.
So Dominion, and then.
Correct.
What are the green?
And then the green and the orange are town-owned poles. The 3 were identified after the banners had been installed as additional locations.
Okay, and then the purple is.
The purple is private
Future.
Property.
Oh, private property.
Yes,
Okay.
and then the red, those were not approved. They're owned by Dominion.
Okay. The private property people didn't want to participate?
I don't quite remember how that works. I think we would have to go through another process of asking for that permission.
Okay. Leah came and showed me all the 14 pieces of artwork, and I think this is a really great idea. It's very nice, and it'll be a great addition to the town. Does anybody else have any questions on this? Yes, sir.
I wonder if we can just move this to the consent agenda tomorrow evening?
Are there 4 people that would be okay with this being moved to the consent agenda? Okay. All right.
All right. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Okay. Our next item is our proposed budget for fiscal year 2026, budget work session and initial markup. You know, we can't see everybody very well, so it's funny when you stand up. It's like, oh, there they are.
Mayor Burke, Council, appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight, give you an update on the budget, kind of where we're at, talk about next steps, and kind of go into initially a high-level overview of the town. I think a lot of us know this already, but we thought it was important just to kind of reset, let you know, remind you of a few things. So obviously, the town has a AAA credit rating. Few major factors that go into that: the property values of the town, the wealth, median household income, our strong reserves, along with a few other things. That's one of the main reasons we're able to have that AAA credit rating. We have an excellent financial condition. We have strong reserves, unassigned fund balance. We have a debt service reserve. We have revenue stabilization reserve. These are all healthy indicators for a strong financial condition. I'll talk a little bit more about this in a couple slides, but our tax rate and our costs for services are low compared to other similar jurisdictions, other local towns. The town has made a lot of fiscally responsible decisions over the last 5, 10, 15 years that have put the town in a really solid financial position. A lot of sound financial planning, some good, strong financial policies, stable management. As you know, we have a robust services provided by the town, but also 26, to some degree, is a year of transition. We've talked before about the data center money that's coming. We'll know more later this year. Our hope is to use that money in arrears, but that is a new piece of information, new process as part of the budget process for this year. And as you know, we have a lot of funding priorities. We have a robust capital improvement plan, provide a lot of services, a lot of things in front of us. Just wanted to highlight on this slide here. So for context, is the mic on? Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Thought it changed there. So the single-family detached townhome and condos, just as information, there's approximately 50% of the properties in Leesburg is a single-family detached home. About 33% townhomes, 16% condos. So you can see right now, given the change in assessed values, the impact and real estate taxes to our residents. If you include the impact of what the county has in place with their reduction in tax rate along with our tax rate staying the same, you'll see that about half of the Leesburg residents, the townhome and condo section, are experiencing a decrease in taxes. Obviously due to the actions by the county, but I think it's important to note that about half of our households are experiencing a reduction in taxes. As I mentioned, we wanted to highlight a few comparable towns, a couple key metrics that we've used in the past. This has been included in the budget for a few years, but cost per resident. Now, this is for 2023. Obviously, it takes some time to put some of this information together, but for 2023, Leesburg had the lowest cost per resident and also the lowest real estate tax as of fiscal year 25. So the town has very lean operations. We do a lot with very minimal resources, but we provide a lot of services at a very reasonable cost for our taxpayers. One of the parts of the budget process is the long-term sustainability plan. Staff uses this throughout the year to evaluate long-term decisions that the council and the town make. It's a guide. It's not a budget. It's not a forecast. It's a tool. It's part of the process that helps us make fiscally responsible decisions. Some of the key assumptions that are included right now in the current version of the long-term sustainability plan is for purposes of the long-term sustainability plan. Again, not a budget, not a forecast, but for purposes of this guide, we have factored in some revenue from data centers, some revenue for stormwater, and the full debt service impact of our capital improvement plan, the 6-year plan. So some of those longer-term initiatives, things that are out there, is built into the long-term sustainability plan. For the next 6 years, based on some of the assumptions that we've built in, we do anticipate complying with our financial policies. Unassigned fund balance should be able to remain around 20%. Debt service remain less than 15% of general fund operating expenditures. one of the main points of the long-term sustainability plan is making sure that we can afford the capital improvement plan, the robust plan that we have in place. As it stands right now, based on the information, based on the assumptions, the town is in good financial planning for 6 years. That's based on the information we have right now. Just from a high level, talk about fund balance for a minute. I want to emphasize for the council, this is all based on budget. We do not have actual information yet. Obviously, fiscal year 25 ends the end of June. But just using the budget information, if we look at the year ended June 30, 24, that's our most recent audit, what it was our reserves as of that date, and looking at what's planned as part of the budget for fiscal year 25 and what's in the budget right now, it's estimated that our unassigned fund balance would go down to 28% of operating expenditures. Still above policy, but it is noteworthy that the estimate is for it to decline. Now, we know that over the course of a year, what actually happens is different than the budget, but for purposes of letting you know kind of where we are right now, that's the estimate. We have planned to use debt service reserves. So debt service, June 30, 24 was 9.7 million. Included in the 25 budget was the use of 4.2 million. And in the current budget that's proposed, about 4 million. So that puts us down to almost 1.5 million. Again, that's an estimate based on the budget. We have been fortunate the last few years. We have not had to use debt service reserve, but based on the budget, that is an estimate of where we think we will end up. And in January, we talked about data centers. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but just to highlight, one of the options for the use of those funds is to replenish some of these reserves. If we do actually end up using them, based on actual results, we could replenish those reserves using data center money. As I mentioned, in January, we had a council retreat. I thought it was very productive, very good conversation. I believe the plan is in July. We will have another meeting to kind of review what we receive. Anticipated to, sorry, I didn't jump ahead. We anticipated to receive the money in the spring after the budget process is complete. But it's important to remember, as we talked about in January, this is a very volatile, very unpredictable source of revenue. This will be the first year we have this source of revenue. So to base any kind of estimates in the current year budget using estimates that we don't 100% know yet, very challenging process. So it's important to remember that past performance isn't indicative of future use as we move forward with data centers. We plan to use, one option is to use the revenues in arrears. After we receive the money, then we would plan how to spend it. That's kind of the concept that we discussed in January. So tonight is another step in the budget process. So far to date, we've had the first work session where we revised the boards and commissions, talked about the capital improvement plan, the key enhancements, and utilities fund. On February 25th, we adopted the proposed budget schedule. We reduced the vehicle license fee to $0, which is an impact of $900,000. And we reduced the personal property tax rates for vehicles of elderly and disabled to $6,000. So as it stands right now, the 26 budget has a shortfall of about $906,000 based on those actions. Now Tamara is going to get into a few other details.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm Tamara Kiesecker, and I am your budget officer. So as Owen noted earlier in the budget process, we did bring to you the boards and commissions requests. We noted that the FY26 proposed budget includes funding for the piano maintenance for COPA, as well as cost of living adjustments for the Planning Commission and for the BAR. Those are based on your actions during the last budget process to tie those increases to cost of living adjustments. Not included in the proposed budget are 5 requests, as shown on the screen and as included in your packet. If council wanted to add any of those to the budget, tonight would be the night to do that when we get to the initial markup session. All of those would have an impact on local tax funding with the exception of the request from the Tree Commission. The Tree Commission has identified that we could use the Tree Bank Reserve to fund that if you so chose. We've talked a number of times at this point about key enhancements to include the cybersecurity officer, the police IT manager, the police lieutenant, the senior engineer for community development, the transportation engineer, those preliminary engineering studies which leverage unassigned fund balance, and then the potential tax relief program. As Mr. Dentler noted, that was really in anticipation of maintaining the vehicle license fee. So we would anticipate that since you have now reduced that, that tax relief program would come out. Tonight, again, would be the time to make those decisions, though. As it stands today, all of those are in your proposed budget, so you would only have to act to remove them from the budget. This slide highlights the employee compensation. As you know, there's an average of a 3% pay for performance increase included in the proposed budget. There is also a 2% cost of living adjustment. As you'll recall, we did anticipate a 9% increase in health insurance premiums. We did get the renewals at the end of February, and it's actually a 9.5% increase in renewals. That's not a substantial difference, but this slide does show the biweekly increase to the employees, assuming they share in that increase, so their premiums would also go up 9.5%. We did want to note that there are regional comparisons of the compensation packages included in our various neighboring localities' proposed budgets. Those are in your question packet number 6 from the Friday before last. As you know, the FY26 budget does include a significant investment in milling and paving, in addition to the $775,000 that's in your general fund and has always been in your general fund. We have another $1 million in the 26 CIP. When I say that, I just want to make sure it's clear that that $1 million is specific to FY26. We also have recurring funding that increases over time, so that you're maintaining that and actually growing the amount for your paving program over the 6-year period. So by the end of the 6-year period, fiscal year 2031, that $1 million has now grown to $2.5 million. So just want to be clear that that's increasing. Our proposal is to debt finance that over its useful life. That was in order to, as Owen mentioned, kind of maintain that compliance with our policies in the long-term sustainability plan. Just to kind of preview into the initial markup, so we have what we call the real property tax calculator. Through this process, council identifies the changes they'd like to make to service delivery and/or expenditures via straw poll votes. We then program those into the calculator, and it identifies the real property tax rate necessary to support that level of service. This serves as the record of council's changes to the proposed budget. As Owen noted, going into this work session, you do already have a gap in your budget of $906,000. $900,000 is from the reduction to the vehicle license fee, and $6,000 from the reduced rate for personal property tax on vehicles owned by elderly and disabled. As I think Owen also mentioned, we're halfway through the budget process at this point. This serves as budget work session 2 of 3, where we'll focus on the Q&A for the general fund budget and initial markup. That doesn't prohibit you from asking other questions, obviously. Tomorrow we'll have the public hearing on the fiscal year 2026 proposed budget, and then on the 24th and 25th we'll have the 3rd budget work session, as well as final markup, the public hearing for the real property tax rates, and the subsequent adoption of those rates. And with that, we stand ready to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor,
Yes?
you just got a lot of information, and so you may want to have a Q&A session, but I also wanted to mention to you that we have a deeper information for you on the paving program, should you wish to go into that. Renee's fully prepared to do that. I'm not sure what your interests are, so we'll just sit back and wait for your direction, but I wanted to make sure you knew that we had that ready to go
All
for
right.
your consideration.
Okay, thank you. Let's go through the questions first, and then see if people have any additional need to talk about the paving. So this is the markup session, so this is where we should be asking people. I don't like it in front of my face. So this is where we should be trying to find ways to get that 900, almost $1 million worth of deficiency. So Let's go around the table and see if Mr. Kirkowski, do you have any questions or comments or things you want to add to the markdown?
Not at this time, Mayor.
No questions either? Okay. Ms. Nacy?
This is hard to get used to. Thank you. Key enhancements. What senior engineer community development? What impact would that have? Is that if we removed that?
Thanks for the question. If I could just pull up the backup slides for the enhancement, just kind of talk through our justification a little bit. That'll help illustrate the future impacts. And Bill is here as well to join me.
Perfect.
While we're getting that set up, essentially, what we're seeing is our workload indicators are, thank you. Okay. One second. Keep going. Thank you. Thank you. Perfect.
You'll get
Perfect.
dizzy. Whoa.
All right. So what we're seeing is our workload indicators are trending upward. So the graph in front of you is major land development reviews. This is one of the budget performance metrics that we track. So fiscal year over fiscal year, if you follow that dashed line, you're seeing the number of major land development reviews or touches is increasing over time for the engineering division. You're also seeing that minor land development reviews are also increasing. You can see that trend line, and again, this is data that we've reported since FY17 through FY24. Now, the important takeaway here, as we continue to look through the workload indicators, the staffing levels have not really changed as the workload has gone up. And the reason I have legislative applications here is because engineers are actually referral agents on all those rezonings and special exceptions. So this trend is remaining constant. So since FY17, if we just go back to the major land development reviews, there's been 8 staff in the engineering division, used to be called Department of Plan Review. We did add 1 staff member in FY19, but our feeling is and our recommendation is we haven't really kept pace with the workload that is increasing. Combine that now with the fact that, I think that must be the rest of my slides. So combine that with there's no easy projects left in the town. We're about 93% built out. So each project that comes to our review team is a little bit more complex. It's a lot of infill and redevelopment. Combine that with the amount of projects we're finding in the floodplain. And then the big aha is that the state is now compressing our review timeframes. And that legislative is in front of the state. I think that they're due to sign it around March 24th. And that would take our state required timeframes for these site plan reviews down from 60 in the first submission to 40, and then subsequent submission 30 to 20. And then even after the third submission, they might force our hand to approve within 20 days. So the impact would be we're already a lean staff. That lean staff doesn't really have the ability to absorb anomalies already, things like staff going out on long-term medical disability or a lot of applications coming in all at one time. So we're going to start to see that our ability to meet those state-mandated timeframes is going to go down. And I think Bill shared with you last time, he looked at some of the numbers. We were late 20% of the time. He kind of forecasted if we had to meet those deadlines with our same number of staff, same time frame for review, we'd be late over 75% of the time.
Thank you. So assuming it passes with the budget, would you start recruiting for this now with the anticipation of like a July 1 start date, assuming that engineers are not easy to find and hire? Is that a process that you start ahead of time so we would be ahead of the curve?
If you authorize the position now, we would recruit now. We do recognize that the council wants to have a conversation about process improvements, so we are open to maybe starting that mid-year as well, whatever the council decides.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Mr. Cummings?
Yeah, I just figured I'd ask Mr. David since he's here and not make him sit. How How many staff members work on each application?
You want to take that one, Bill?
It really depends on the type of application it is. Sometimes there are floodplains involved, so we do have a floodplain specialist on our staff. We also have a stormwater management specialist on our staff, and we also have a generalist. So typically, 3 people will be looking at that on any given part of the application.
Do y'all have T-shirts with your names on the? No, I'm just kidding. One other question that you may be able to answer. So one of the items we've talked about in the past is peer review from qualified engineering firms that the town helps to make sure meet all of the recommendations and requirements. Would that help ease the workload of staff if we had a peer review policy?
It would be very expensive. Outside engineers are roughly $300 to $400 an hour. So that's where that cost would get very, very expensive.
What if the applicant chose to use peer review to help bring forward to the town the best plan possible that's already signed off
Awesome.
by 2 or 3 engineers?
Awesome. We've brought that up on numerous occasions. Nobody's taken us up on that yet.
But my question specifically is, if we adopted that policy and there was a peer review policy in place that if I was developing a property, I had 2 other engineers sign off with their stamp on a plan, and it came to you, and you all simply said, okay, we agree with these other engineers, they're professionals in our field, we're good to go. And instead of, because what I think potentially could happen is if you don't look at that peer review as on equal footing as your review, then it does become expensive for both the town and the applicant. But if we use peer review to simply help alleviate some of these maybe minor applications or applications that are a little easier but just take a lot of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think I'd like us to think outside the box a little bit on that as well, just because I think there's ways to speed up the process and be efficient for the town's
Anything
dollar.
that gets us a higher quality of plan, I'm for.
If I could just add really quickly, there are examples of that model in other jurisdictions for their expedited review programs. Essentially, if the developer pays up front to send it to that peer review, but along with that program usually comes the understanding that, okay, if it went through this process, then the town staff's going to move quicker. So there's an accountability on both sides.
Did you have any other questions, Mr. Cummings?
Oh, I thought maybe I was just piggybacking on Councilmember Nacy. Sure, I do. I have just a general budget question. As introduced, let's pretend like we don't have to eliminate $906,000. But as introduced, with the new $5.5 million in spending, what does our revenue for fiscal year 27 have to look like just to maintain that same spending? So we're adding new positions. We have a COLA and a merit raise. We have new spending that's happened, all from the $5.5 million new dollars that we have coming into the town. What does next year's base revenue have to be to just maintain what we're adding this year potentially?
So I would highlight that of that $5.5 million, $2 million of that is the annexation payment coming from the county that gets transferred to utilities. So that kind of stays even throughout that period. But looking at the long-term sustainability model, we would need, we would need well, that includes the increases. Do we have it, Owen, without the increases?
I think I'd estimate, you look at what's in the presentation.
Can we get you a mic? Can we? Thank you.
Is that good? Yeah. Okay. So I'd look back at the presentation I think Councilor Cummings is looking at from town manager's presentation. In that budget, the expenses were estimated to increase $5.5 million. Of that, as Tamara said, some of that's the payment to utilities. So you say roughly 3.5, 4 million is where we were this year. I think that's probably a good starting point. But to project out a future year, while we have used the long-term sustainability plan, I'd be hesitant to tie us to a number at this point, but for a ballpark, I'd kind of start there.
Okay, all right. And on that long-term sustainability plan, does that plan include forecasting at various economic conditions, a recession?
Correct. We consider all of that, but as we're putting the guide together, we have to make some concrete assumptions and say, this is what we feel going forward. So if something were to deviate from that, that would have an impact on the long-term sustainability plan. So if we have in there, for instance, inflation of 2% and ends up being higher, yeah, that's going to have an impact. But we have to set kind of a baseline, and that's where we are right now.
And as you're all preparing the budget, and maybe I'm talking to the CIP, so if somebody else has to answer this, I understand. But did we anticipate in the coming year CIP increased costs due to tariffs?
No.
Okay. One question on the CIP, on the town hall garage improvements, the structural improvements, and the Liberty Street lot resurfacing. Would we be able to, if we changed the code, use the funds in the payment in lieu towards either the structure updating or the Liberty Street lot resurfacing?
I am not sure of the answer to that one.
Anybody have an idea over here?
I guess that one's for me. I think that you would probably have to have a public hearing before you change that. I think it would be, I don't think this rises to the level of a formal enterprise fund, which would, this was a reservation that you imposed sort of as a philosophy or as a policy, and I don't think it would rise to the level of a formal enterprise fund where there'd be more rules. So I think ultimately you could change your policy is the short answer.
Okay, thank you. You just looked lonely over there. I had to throw one out for you.
I appreciate your consideration.
Okay, sorry. One question on the, and sorry I'm jumping all over the place here, on the commission enhancements that, Tamara, you brought up. You're saying we have to use year-over-year tax revenue for those, or we can't use unassigned fund balance to fund those enhancements?
I believe my understanding is that they are recurring requests. If they are not recurring requests, you could use unassigned fund balance.
Yeah, I look at like a town ornament project as, I don't know how many years in a row people want to get an ornament.
Well, you assume they'll change it every year.
That's true. Some of these looked, marketing materials for Parks and Rec, land use education program. To me, they look like they could be one-time expenses, but maybe I'm misunderstanding what they are.
I don't know if Leah is still here. I think my understanding of the town ornament project is it would be an annual project. You would do almost like the White House ornaments where it's updated every year, but we can definitely confirm that if you have an interest in adding any particular ones.
I probably should know that one specifically, but I don't. All right. I had some questions on in the Parks and Rec budget. Figure since we're here at Ida Lee, why not?
Absolutely.
Right? So I appreciate actually reading, and I've got into the weeds on the goals and kind of the trends and everything. So I just had a few on Ida Lee and specifically. So we talked. One of the goals is to grow the departmental revenues over previous years. And then I noticed that we're at like 90% for programs, which is great. And that Idle seems to be kind of, the income for the recreation center kind of remains steady. It's, 5,000, 10,000 here one year, 5,000, 10,000 up or down. What's the department, what are you all doing to try to make up that, increase that goal for year over year from 90 to 100? That's a tough delta to make, that last 10%.
That is a very different.
You're good. Oh,
Okay, sorry. Okay, that is a very difficult delta to make up. Every year, staffing, which obviously makes up the vast majority of our budget as well as the vast majority of every other budget probably here within town, that increases, and it's difficult from a revenue standpoint to offset that on a yearly basis. We constantly monitor various market rate pricing for our various programs. We market our programs. We try and get more people in. You see the A-frame signs out in front of the recreation center. You see our Facebook posts. We're constantly trying to advertise our programs and get more people in, as well as run programs that the community wants, not just run a program that's only going to have 2 or 3 people in there and not be a cost recovery based program. We'll do away with that program if it doesn't start working right for us after a couple times, and then we'll replace it with a program that will generate the money. So we're constantly trying to make little tweaks along the way in order to ensure that that revenue keeps going up.
Okay, very nice. How many of your employees in the Parks and Rec department are hourly, part-time hourly versus full-time?
We have, I believe it's 35 full-time staff members.
Okay.
And probably 400 plus individual part-time staff. Part-time staff make up a vast majority of what we do.
Okay. And in the discussion on COLA and merit, do part-time staff, do they qualify for that, or are they on a different scale?
They're on a different scale. Only regular part-time staff would qualify for a COLA. What we do with our flexible part-time staff is we're constantly looking at the various market rate payments and comparing those, and then we put forward a request to have a budget adjustment for those as needed.
Thank you. I see that the facility visits increased to 375 from 375,000, I should say, to 370,000 from 370,000. Do you see a need in the future, whether this budget or future budgets, to increase your staff for the facility dramatically?
For the actual facility operation, no. We have a pretty good program in place with the number of facility we have dealing with the individuals that come to the rec center. Where we have needs from a staffing perspective at the recreation center would be more in the marketing end as to how can we tell our story better, how can we get that out to the community. Then we have other needs, obviously, within the park side, where we're currently operating more in a let's just keep it running as opposed to doing enhancements like we're done in years past.
Right. And you led right to my next question. Are any concern at all? I know there's going to be some updating in the CIP. You talk about updating the locker rooms and the pools, and that's going to shut down the pool facility for, I think it said 8 months.
I believe that's probably pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it.
I mean, I know it's not this budget; it's future budgets, but. Is there any? I mean, how does your department look to handle that? I mean, that's a long time being shut down. Do you have concerns about folks coming back after an 8-month?
We probably would not shut down the pool facility for a period of 8 months. The pool portion of that project would be a much smaller portion, maybe a 3-month process. So we could potentially time that out right where we're running our summer programs at the outdoor pool in the morning hours before we open up so that it's not as big an impact indoors. Then when the actual locker rooms are being reconstructed, we could bring in portable locker rooms and keep them outside and enter the pool area from another side. So just little ways we would try and keep the facility operating as normal as possible.
Yeah. Well, I know it doesn't look like it, but I have been swimming a lot more, and it's I mean, it's a really popular facility. I mean, it's full every morning.
Yep.
So thank you. I appreciate your time.
All right, thank
and
you.
that's all the questions I have for now.
Mr. Will?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I wanted to correct myself for Mr. Cummings' question. I did go back and look. The requests for COPA and the Parks and Rec Commission are the one-time requests. The other 3 are recurring. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So I think my question is overall, looking at the future. Right now, the Atlanta Fed came out and said that GDP is going to be negative 2.4% in the first quarter of 2025. Their first estimate was 4% positive. It's now swung 6.4% the other way. We're looking at rifts of 200,000 people or more from the federal government and moving departments out of DC. So if we approve this budget as presented, I think this question goes to the town manager. In 6 months, let's say things aren't on track and we're not collecting the revenue we thought we were going to collect, and we're down $10 million. What do? What do you bring to us?
Well, $10 million would be a significant problem, but let's just maybe order of context, take you back to March of 20 when COVID hit. No one knew what COVID was. No one knew what the COVID impact would be. And one of the first measures we did, we froze a lot of activities. We canceled different trainings, travels, projects that we didn't feel we needed to do. And we put a significant amount of savings over to the side that we would have. So we cut our expenses. We stopped hiring, et cetera. And when we started to come out of COVID, we were way ahead of where we were. And we had council members at the time ask us, you don't need all this money. Why did you have all this savings? It's because we are proactive is the point. We will be monitoring everything very closely. Right now, we don't know what's going to happen in the overall environment, but our team is very strong. We are monitoring things on a daily, monthly basis. We will position ourselves well, and I think from the experience of COVID alone should give you confidence that we know what we're doing, and if we need to make adjustments, we shall do that.
But did that come with federal money at that time?
No. The savings of reductions were all the general fund and utility fund dollars. Yes, we got some money from the feds, but that wasn't the saving grace. That was just, in reality, that was gravy on the table. The savings and the proactive actions that we took long before we got into even worse into the pandemic was really what needed to be done. And I think if I were in your shoes, that's part of what you want to hear, that you know that we're not just going to sit and wait 6, 12 months. Oh gosh, we have a problem. That's not how we operate. And if you look at those items that they showed at the beginning of the presentation about how we manage, that should give you a level of confidence that we do know what we're doing and we are monitoring closely. We wouldn't have AAA if we weren't paying attention to what's going on.
So at the beginning of COVID, the things you mentioned about the items you cut, do you know how much that was overall?
Off top of my head, I don't know, but I would say it had to be somewhere from $2, $3, $4 million that we just stopped. And part of it was freezing positions that we had. We just stopped hiring. That's probably 60% of our budget plus is personnel, and stop that. I don't think there were any pay raises during that time, et cetera. So we were just proactive in what we needed to do. And then if I remember correctly, probably the first budget that was presented immediately during that time frame, what I presented to the council was an entirely flat budget because we did not know what was going to happen. And so we took that approach. We knew the pandemic was underway. In the environment that we have today, there's a lot of uncertainty. We don't know if it's going to swing negative or positive. So anyone could take the position of where it's their comfort zone. They could go and shut everything down, or you can kind of cautiously proceed. It depends on ultimately how you as the leaders feel, what is your comfort zone. At the end of the day, our residents are expecting services, and those services have to get delivered. That's not going to change whether there's an economic downturn or a pandemic. Trash collections, parks recreation, police services, plans that have to get reviewed, all that has to still get done.
Right, absolutely. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Steinberg?
No questions right
I have a couple, well, just a few. One, could, in July, when we sit down and talk about the data center stuff, could could the data center money be put into CIP projects? And then whatever money we have in the CIP project moved over into the general fund?
I would say that most of the money that's in the CIP is either grant funding or it's debt financing, so you would not use that in the operating fund. That would not be appropriate. You could add to programs using that money, but it probably would not be a swap of sources.
Okay, interesting, thank you. The tree commission said that they could get their tree giveaways from the tree fund. I'd like to put that on, along with the Commission on Public Art and, was it Parks and Rec was the other one that
For the marketing materials.
was the one time?
Scott, can you switch us back to the calculator?
And those three have funding. Two would come from the unassigned fund balance and the other one would come from the tree fund, right?
Correct.
Well, we don't know if it passed or failed. We haven't done
Just
anything.
gonna plug them in so you
Okay.
can see what they'll look like.
Okay.
Just put the other two together.
No pressure with us all looking at what you're typing. Don't. So is that all from the tree commission?
She put the COPA Town Ornament Project and the Parks and Rec Commission on one line,
Together.
because those will both be taxed.
Okay. All
Or
right.
unassigned fund balance.
So let me ask at this point, for staff, is it easier for you all if we put our, what we want added or taken out, and then wait until it's all done to vote on it? Or would you rather we vote on it, the things that we do tonight?
I think it would be better if you voted on it tonight, just so that we can start preparing the budget ordinance for next week. That doesn't prohibit you from making additional changes next week, but it just gets us to a better point, fewer errors.
All right, is anyone else have anything they want to add or take away at this point?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Yes?
Quick question. So we discussed the potential tax relief program, and that clearly we addressed the elderly and disabled with the $6,000 by going to zero. But we didn't discuss disabled veterans, surviving spouses of disabled veterans, and killed in action. I know you might have to research this. Do we have a cost estimate on that?
Those are 100% exempt, so there's $0 associated with that altogether.
Okay, perfect.
Those are automatic.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, then if there's no additional at this point, then there's just two things we need. Do we need to vote on are there 4 people that would be interested in adding the $13,200 for the tree fund, coming from the tree fund? All right, that would go. And then would there be four people that would be willing to support the 1K for COPA Town Ornament Project and $2,500 for Parks and Rec marketing material, which would come out of the unassigned fund balance? All right, those all go. 2. So at this point, is there anything else you need at this point? We do have 2 more sessions, but we also have to realize that we do have a large gap in our budget. So please be thinking about what it is that what you feel is not necessary and what you feel is necessary, so that we can have a better picture of where we are.
Yeah, Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I was just going to echo that. The more you can provide tonight of what your kind of intended direction is beneficial to us. There's a lot of numbers that have to be crunched. What we don't want to do is be at the meeting in 2 weeks and have the math be off. So it's not that we can't do things, but if you are prepared to make any other adjustments, it's very beneficial for us to do that tonight, and that's all based on our past experiences. So I would highly encourage you to consider what adjustments you want to make tonight if you're ready. But obviously, if you're not, then we just keep going. But it will get more challenging if we wait.
All right. Councilmember Steinberg?
Well, in that vein, yes, I have yet to hear anything that begins to address the $906,000 hole we now have in the budget, and so I don't see how we can leave that for our final session. So I'd like to begin that conversation now.
Well, we tried. Mr. Cummings?
Yeah, I'm sorry. In my excitement of talking about Parks and Rec, I forgot I had I had another question. The $310,000 in the enhancements for technology, can we get that broken down so we know what that $310,000 includes?
That 310 was not, we didn't refer to it as enhancement, we referred to it as base adjustments. That is various technology contracts, everything from our document repository system to our financial system maintenance agreement. It does include the recurring cost associated with the upgrade of the town network. So there is 190 of that is associated with that piece, but everything else is strictly routine contracts.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, I just have a question about the first 2 items there, the 100,000 and the 25,000. Did we already vote on that?
You have not. Those are
Okay.
just there for informational because they were brought up by a couple members of council during the question process.
Okay, I was just wondering. Thank you.
You
Oh,
could.
okay, so we need to do those two. Okay. So that's the 100,000 from the unassigned balance for one-time contribution to the Marshall Visitors House, and the 25,000 from the unassigned fund balance for the St. James Cemetery project. Are there four votes in favor of that, or 4 hand raises in front of that? Okay. Do you need that one? Did you get that? Who voted for it?
Madam Mayor, it would probably be best if we did them individually. So the
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
$100,000,
Okay,
I get
okay.
the forehead nods
I
on
got
that,
it.
and
Okay.
then take the other one
Okay,
separately.
Okay,
Thank you.
the contribution to the Marshall House Visitor Center, do we have 4 people that are in favor of that? Okay, that passed? Well, didn't pass, we didn't vote technically, it was hand raising. And then 25 for the St. James Cemetery project. Okay. So no one has anything at this point? Well, yes? sir?
Sorry. Maybe it just takes someone to push the dam forward here. I'd say at this point, I would be willing to cut the extra engineer for the community development department.
All right. Are there 4 votes for hand raises for not accepting that enhancement? 1, 2, 3. Okay, that doesn't go anywhere. Anything else? No?
I'll make somebody else go next.
I'll go.
Yes, sir.
Actually, I was wondering if we could get a discussion from, I suppose it'd be Renee, a little bit of discussion on the transportation engineer. She's here, right, I think?
Yes, she's,
Perhaps, I don't want to say justification, but, just description on the needs and things like that. I mean, I've heard from some town staff, but it'd be nice to hear from you specifically on it.
Okay. The transportation engineer, we have one in this fiscal year so far. She has processed over 150 right-of-way permits. That should be a 5 to 7 day process. Currently, that is averaging about 2 to 3 weeks. She has done over 64 plan reviews for community development, dealing with anything as complicated as a traffic impact analysis for expansions, small studies up to major transportation impact analysis. She is running behind on those because of the volume of work. She also oversees 3 traffic signal technicians and all of the timing for 63 traffic signals in town. She's the staff liaison for the Residential Traffic Commission. I can go on. I have a 3-page list of her job responsibilities, but those are the key areas that she touches in town. Also the sidewalk dining program, safety studies, pedestrian studies, traffic calming, et cetera. And she's a one-person shop.
Okay, that was my question. So she is one deep. Would this individual be a lateral? There'd be 2 reporting up, or would she become a supervisor?
She would, so the position that we're proposing, I hate to use the term junior engineer, but it would be a lower grade engineer that would be able to handle the more routine aspects of her job, the right-of-way permits, helping with some of the traffic counts and residential permit parking, also helping the traffic signal technicians when they have questions about things in the field. They would be able to handle the street light program. So they would be working with her, taking some of the lower activities with the possibility of a career ladder to be able to bring them to the same level as Nirja is currently.
Okay, so the intent would not be to make Nirja into a supervisory position or
No.
promotion or anything like that?
No,
This
her,
is
her
to
current
assist.
position is a supervisory position, so this person would be under that and report to.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Nacy?
Thank you. All right, I have 3 ideas that no one's gonna like, but here they come. The senior engineer and the transportation engineer, could we just not staff them right now and potentially add them later?
You mean
And-
like 6 months down the road?
Yeah, enough that we can get our budget balanced, using that term, and passed.
Mr. Dentler, is that something that is
So
feasible?
it not a no, but a not right now.
Well, sure, you can do anything you want. I certainly think on the senior engineer, since there are some trepidation with that position and the processes for plan review, I think that's a reasonable compromise and approach that we would not hire that until at least January 1, which would allow Mr. David to have time to present to you here, I think, the end of April. And then you can get a little more understanding and comfort zone of what we're doing and what our challenges are and make a better educated decision on that.
I feel like by that point, we will know what kind of data center revenue we're initially potentially looking at as well. That'll help make up for some of this. So I would propose stalling those 2 positions. And then I would also propose reducing the $1 million in paving that we're adding to $500,000.
So I would just note the $1 million is in the CIP as debt financing, so if you reduce
Oh,
that,
shoot,
it wouldn't
so it
do
does
anything
nothing.
to your general
Okay,
fund.
well, never mind, scratch that.
Scratch the, taking
Counselor
$1 million
Nacy.
from the
Yeah.
plan. Oh, good, phew.
Counselor Nacy?
Yeah.
Just want to confirm what you're requesting for the engineer and the community development engineer. You want to remove those 100% right now.
Correct.
Reduce by 6
Okay, well,
months.
there's,
I thought your proposal was to.
Well, yeah,
you
I mean, what,
decide on January what to do, or to fund it for 6 months, January to June?
yeah, if we fund it for 6 months, what What's that look like?
Yeah, that's what I thought you were going. I think the senior engineer for plan review, that's very appropriate. And then after you've had your process conversations, you'll know, you can direct me to go forward or not. We can plan for the transportation engineer to not start until January 1. We can still begin our advertising process, but if economic times, which is what the vice mayor has raised concern, we would know whether to pivot or not at
Right.
that and slow down.
Okay,
Because it's a really two different type of positions in
Right.
what they're doing. One's not gonna, you need the transportation person, and you're just not comfortable with the plan review one at this point, is the way I read the concerns.
also just trying to make up a delta here. And those people don't exist yet, so.
So just so I'm clarified, you're going to delay the hiring of both those engineers until January 1st, 2026?
Yeah, and if at that point we need to look at taking them all the way out, we can do that.
Okay.
But I mean, at least we're moving the needle somewhere.
Okay. I'll come back, we'll come back to vote on that when I hear more. Mr. Kurkowski and then Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to propose that we approve the 2 police lieutenant positions.
You don't have to do that,
Why not?
because you take them away, unless you take them away, they're on there.
Well, we have to lock them in, right?
They're already in your budget.
They're
You don't have to
already
vote them
I'm
in.
sorry, then I apologize. I thought that was the one that we had to. Okay, all right. I apologize. Yeah, okay. Disregard.
Okay.
I thought-
Vice Mayor?
I think we're missing the $100,000 for the tax relief program. I don't see that in there unless I'm missing it.
I don't think council has mentioned it yet, so we didn't add it.
Okay, yeah, I think we should take that one out. And then while we're talking personnel, removing the cybersecurity individual, sorry. And then also, I would like the engineering studies of $175,000. We should vote on that.
Those are unassigned fund balance. Does that change your?
No. What about the police IT manager? That's not unassigned fund balance.
Correct.
I'd like to also add that one as well. I think we should just vote on all of them and see which ones pass.
Yes, Mr. Cummings?
I just have a question on the cybersecurity officer, since that was brought up to be removed. Yes, sir. So in the town manager's presentation, he highlighted all of the, I had it in front of me, I lost it, but he highlighted all of the spam attacks and the scamware and the ransomware and all of the wares out there that are folks coming after us. How currently, without a cyber security engineer, how is your department handling kind of combating against those?
As always, we're doing our best to keep up. You do not now have anyone concentrating on cyber. We're fitting it in to everything else that we're doing, and running a lean department, which is good. I like lean departments. We can move a little quicker, but that is definitely leaving you open. And we wouldn't be hiring an engineer, just so we're clear. The town can't afford a security engineer, a CISSP. So what we're hiring is someone with a security background that can help us manage the portfolio that we already have today and all the different layers that we have, managing that system, but also the reason the title of the position is also governance, bringing all that governance. And cybersecurity has a lot of pieces that fall under governance in cyber, bringing all that together to and also include your education campaigns. But really, that point person that's going to run when we get the alerting, whatever time that is, most of our bad actors want to operate between midnight and 4 a.m. when they know most of us are asleep. And that is running once something has been flagged. We have to run everything through the process. One, make sure endpoints are secure, making sure if it was a malware that came through an email, we've got to not only secure that, but did we have any lateral move across our network? And that person is the one that runs point with all the other pieces. And then, of course, our partners at the Virginia Fusion Center, plus our VACORP cybersecurity insurance that we have to notify really before anything happens. So there's a lot of pieces to that.
You mentioned you're not hiring an engineer. I apologize for misspeaking.
Oh, no worries.
You're hiring someone with a essentially have gone through a program and has a certificate of training, he or
Right.
she. How many members of our staff currently are armed with that same training certificate or training that we are looking to hire someone for?
I would have to check that, but at minimum, most of your staff's going to have Security Plus. What we're looking for, though, is experience. Certificates are great, but certificates don't get you anywhere when it comes to cyber and day zero attacks. That's where we're going to look for someone that's actually had some experience, but at a level, of course, that we can afford to bring in.
Sure.
But then concentrate, because we can also get them the training that's necessary if they need that next level. And of course, training's never ending. All IT staff every year, as part of their goals, have to have training.
So this is an unfair question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. This is not new. Cybersecurity isn't new.
Nope.
Why is it just now in fiscal year 26 that we're looking to hire a cybersecurity officer?
I cannot speak for my predecessors, but I would say it's a miss. And if you look around any of the surrounding localities, to include Loudon, to include the locality I came from, yes.
Let me just jump in. I can't give you specific dates, Councilmember Cummings, but the IT Commission has been recommending this for many years now. A few years ago, probably without verifying, probably during the COVID era, maybe slightly before, there was a push for the cybersecurity position, and we recommended not to proceed because we felt we couldn't afford it at that time, and that we would wait, and that we would diversify the talent of our staff to kind of tackle it as a team. But it was always with the position that we would pursue this, and even the councils back then believed we would do it. The only thing I can tell you is this is one of your greatest risks, and is what level of exposure are you willing to take? From our position, the town has to do this at some point. We've pushed it off because of the same trouble you're challenged with now. But at some point, I think if something happens and you don't have this position, I think you're going to really regret that decision.
Well, and when we look at our risk assessment, you do not have your 6 covered today, right? And that's something you really, really have to think long and hard about. We increase our risk by not having the position. Now your staff is doing everything they can. My job's 24/7 because of it. And again, we do our best, but remember too, they've only got to get lucky one time. We've got to get lucky every single time with the thousands and thousands of attempts that we have on a daily basis. Some of you have seen some of the email spoofing most recently. And again, it only takes them one piece to get in. Now, what we can hope to do is get out in front of it, and make no mistake, we're not talking if, we're talking when. It is going to happen. It's happened before, it'll happen again. No one is untouched. Doesn't matter what federal agency or state agency you have. Everybody gets hit. It's just how are we going to be able to handle the hit? Can we get out in front of it? Make sure we have no exfiltration of data, because if we have exfiltration, we get into a whole nother mess at that point. I've led day zeros. You are in a risk posture right now. I can tell you that. Now, we'll do our best. We're government employees. That's what we do. We do more with less all the time, and we'll continue to do that. But it is a necessary position, and you will want to bring it on at some point, because as the town manager mentioned, if something does happen, we do have to prove due diligence in court at some point if there's exfiltration. So, any other questions?
No,
You
I
can
just
answer
wanna
on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Vice Mayor. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I do have a question for the police chief on the 2 lieutenant positions. If we were to cut it to 1 lieutenant position, how does that change anything for you?
So if we were to, so just so I can explain what the 2 watch commanders we use for, currently we have 2 that I'm using. They're working a 10 to 10 or 12 to 12. I put them 12 to 12 on the weekends. obviously a lot of calls happening later. We have 4 patrol squads with 4 sergeants. If they take leave or they're not available for any reason, the most senior officer on the patrol squad is basically the supervisor in charge in that lieutenant's absence, which is over half the time. We looked at the ages of our officers. 65% of our patrol officers have less than 3 years of experience. So that is a huge liability concern for us right now. We do get a lot of, obviously, use of force reviews that we're doing regularly, pursuits. We had a couple pursuits last year, should have been terminated, were not terminated. Those are the things that happen with the lack of supervision, just inexperience, and really not making the judgment call just because they don't have that training, that patience, that maturity that we're looking for. So if we were to cut it down to 1, we would make some modifications to certainly make that work. Currently, keep in mind those 2 lieutenants are doing those use of force reviews. They're doing things, so they're doing a lot of admin work in addition to operational work. What I would probably do is take that 3rd lieutenant and kind of rotate it through so that they're focused on just the administrative side, so at least we can get full-time support of the operational side, the 12 hours that they're out there. And then, like I said, we'll just rotate it through for the experience, but it would be a little more timely that way on handling like complaints from citizens and, like I said, audits and other things that need to happen. So I would make it work with 3 if we had to. Thered still be a gap potentially with after-hours coverage.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have a couple items we need to decide what we want to do with. The first one is delay hiring of the senior engineer in the community development until January 1st, 2026. Are there 4 hands that would be willing to consider that? Okay, there's 4 on that one. Delay hiring of the transportation engineer in public works and capital projects until January 1st, 2026. Okay, the same 4. Remove $250K for the cybersecurity. I missed one, sorry. Okay, thank you. Oh, reduced $100K for tax relief program. I think we all, okay. All right. Okay, now I'm down to, this is hard to read from here. Remove $215K for the cybersecurity officer. Do we have 4 people that would want to do that? You have a question? Yes?
Would 4 people be willing to do what we did with the other 2 and just delay the hire? Instead of.
Are there 4 people that would delay it? No. Okay, back to, so remove the, that one failed. Remove the 215 for cybersecurity. That one failed. Okay. Remove 175K for planning and engineer studies. Okay, that fails.
Doesn't matter, but.
It was, oh, it passed. Oh, yeah, that's what I meant. I'm sorry, that it passed to do away with it. And then remove $160,039 for the IT manager in the police department. That does not pass. All right. You have, yes, Mr. Cummings?
I just have a comment, and I'll once again venture into the water here. So I understand that there wasn't council direction on the 900,000 and something thousand on the license fee to remove it when the budget was presented to us, but it was known that that this was going to be an option. I would say I appreciate the exercise of us sitting here and having to cut things, but I would also request, this was the staff's budget handed to us to make a decision on. I would love to hear from the town manager or someone on what they feel, if at this point where we have a gap to close, what they would feel that we could cut at this point to get us to a balanced budget.
Mr. Dentler, did you want to answer that question?
If I can ask the staff first, what's the gap in dollars, not tax rate, but to get to, I think, the goal of council is to maintain 17.74 before you make a decision here, what, next week or 2 weeks. What is the dollar amount?
Just under 660,000.
Okay. So there's two options. It can be a hybrid, but there's usually two options when we get to this point. One, council can direct what reductions you want, or you can direct the town manager to come up with the reductions. You have my proposed budget, so you already have my recommendations. It's really what direction you wish to go in to close the gap. I follow your lead once you give me the direction.
So we have a choice of either we continue to go through and cut things individually, or we turn to you at this point and you and say, what would you recommend? So how do we want to proceed on that? Do we want Mr. Dentler to be the one to come back with proposed changes? Is that what, Vice Mayor, you had the question?
Yeah, I just have a question for the town manager. Did we vote on all of the additions to staff that you put into the budget? I couldn't find that.
From the enhancements?
Yeah. I thought it was 8 positions, but I
Well,
think
let's
we
see,
only
we
voted
had
on
the
6.
IT manager,
police,
cybersecurity,
senior
2
engineer.
lieutenants.
Yeah.
2 of them are not local tax funding, so that's the difference between the 8.
Okay. Okay, that makes the difference. Okay, thank you.
All right, so I'm gonna go with the easy way first and see what happens. Do we want at this point to ask the town manager to go back and look to see if he could find $600,000 worth of cuts? All right, then that moves forward, and the discussion stops at this point.
So I will have those, they'll be ready for you when we meet. You get your packet in 2 weeks. And
Okay.
If any council members have suggestions, you're welcome to relay that on to me.
All right. All right, thank you all very much. Appreciate your time and effort tonight. And now we have the agenda setting process.
Madam Mayor, if I
Yes.
could, Tamara or somebody from Budget, can we get, I know we've discussed this before, and I asked the town manager, and he said it'd probably be best for everybody to hear it again. We discussed a couple weeks ago about the elimination of the vehicle tax, sticker tax, whatever, for 900K, but there's some overlap and how that works. So can you go through that again to explain how the overlap between the fiscal year, the budget year, and what the actual, the tax year, thank you.
So the vehicle license fee is in your May bills. So what you voted on was to reduce the fee for tax year 25, which will be this spring's bills. Technically, that doesn't impact your fiscal 26 budget. You wouldn't actually adopt that rate until the subsequent year. But if you think back to the presentation a few weeks ago, that action laid the groundwork for the 26 budget. So you wouldn't normally go back in and reinstitute a fee, but you won't actually vote on that fee until February of next year.
Right.
That one doesn't, unlike the real and personal property taxes themselves, it's just one billing a year. So it's just in May.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. The agenda setting process, which
So good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Eileen Bowen, Clerk of Council. I'm not usually on this side of the podium, so thank you for bearing with me tonight. So at the request of the Vice Mayor to talk about the agenda setting process, I'm just going to briefly frame the framework of how we do put the agenda together, and then your discussion can ensue. Tab A is our master schedule. It's included in every single agenda packet. It's the blue and white document that's at the back. Some people may overlook it, but it does contain all of the items that have been added to Municode, which is our agenda software. And there's two ways for items to get added to an agenda. The first one is council members identify those. We have two opportunities for you to do that. The first one is at a work session. Oops, I don't have my clicker. There we go. There you go. The first one's at a work session, and that's where at the end of the meeting, where you have the opportunity for additions to future meetings. Your colleagues, you have to have forehead nods, and that just ensures that it's an item that the majority of council is interested in discussing or having future action on. The second way is for the town manager to add any routine items, administrative items. There's some contractual dollar amounts that are required to come to council. There are things like boards and commissions appointments, things like that, that you're not going to be asking for under your additions to future meetings. So that's just routine items that get added on your behalf. So the agenda is prepared. The town manager puts that together for the mayor, for him to review with the mayor. It's a draft agenda, and basically it's just a summation of all of those items that have been either added by yourselves or added by the town manager. The order of those items is discussed at those meetings. The mayor, as the presiding officer, does have the time to, does have the opportunity to select what order she'd like to hear those in. Perhaps there's an item that we know that there's going to be a big crowd turnout or something like that that we may want to put further up on the agenda. But at the end of the day, council does adopt its agenda at each and every business meeting. So you do have the opportunity to make deletions, additions. Additions are governed by your council rules of procedure, so you can just familiarize yourself with those. But it's just certain items that don't require a lot of staff work and be added with less time. Those that take some more staff research, we would want to move those out to a further meeting just to allow staff the opportunity to research it thoroughly for you. So the agenda production cycle, I did include for you just, oops, I'm not clicking myself through here, sorry. So just to give you a brief overview of our agenda cycle, we're already starting the agenda prior to the business meetings ending. Items do go through budget, legal, and procurement review. So those are started in advance of the current set of meetings ended. So we do the agenda the Wednesday before all the council meetings. So as you can imagine, those items have to go into the approval queue, and it does take some time to process those. And occasionally we are screeching in at the last minute some hot items, only because information may not be readily available or for a variety of reasons. It could just be something that is coming in at the last minute. So we do also have presentations that we have for the Friday before the council meetings, and those are basically based on your staff reports, all that information that you're getting. We try to make it a quick summary, and we present those to you at the council meetings. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Mr. Dentler and Mr. Spera can answer questions too about the agenda process, how items are added, but we're here to help.
So if I understand you correctly, we, all the things that are on the agenda tab A, all those are coming from council members.
Yes, well, with the exception of the ones that Mr. Dentler would add, correct.
That has to be added because of timelines and stuff of that nature. And then at the town council meeting, if there's something on there that someone should not want to have on the agenda, they can have 4 people support them or 3 people support them and take it off. If they want to do that, or can they just take it off?
When we adopt the meeting agenda, if there's a majority vote,
Right.
excuse me, to remove an item, you can remove it at that time.
Right. So there's really no item that goes on here, with the exception of what the town manager adds, that is not determined by the town council.
Correct.
All right, any, Vice Mayor?
So I brought this up last time because I had an item that disappeared off the agenda. No one told me, no one said. We took 4 votes to get this item on the agenda, and it took no votes to make it disappear. How does that happen?
I don't know what particular item you're referring to, but, you know, it should not be removed from tab A if it's on the master schedule. Unless council, there is a reason why maybe something changed in a, there was a regulatory reason why it went on and that reason is no longer exists. There could be updated information that might be included in another agenda item and it was commingled with that. But there could be a variety of reasons, but certainly if that's the case and there was a request by a council member, we can certainly improve that communication process just to make sure that you're aware an item had been removed.
Madam Mayor?
Yes?
I believe, Vice Mayor, what you're referring to is the job description for the town manager.
Yes.
That particular item was a conversation that council was having directly with the mayor, and the mayor was communicating back to the council members on what had been asked and what the process was. I stayed out of that. I think whether the last meeting or the meeting before that, whatever the cycle was, you asked for it to come back. There was a conversation. It is on your agenda, but why was it removed? It was because there was a conversation going on between council members that I didn't feel I needed to be participating in. If you go back in this room in the retreat of January, during that time frame, there was also discussion with council and the facilitator about the job description and process for the town manager upon my retirement. And at that time, council's direction was that we weren't going to pursue that until I submitted my retirement notice. So if you add all those in there, I think that's really how you ended up where it was dropped off. After the retreat, the understanding was that council was not going to pursue that anymore and wait for my direction, or my action, I should say. But that's how it was dropped off.
Okay, well, that's poor communication because no one came back and said, hey, you voted, 4 people voted to put this on here. I'm just going to strike it off there because of all these side conversations we've been having.
What?
That is not professional.
I would just say, I can only speak for myself as the town manager. I interpreted the conversation was between the mayor and you primarily and the rest of council. I stayed out of that conversation because it was very clear in this room, the council direction was that that particular item was no longer on your agenda. So if you go back to the notes of that meeting, the facilitator talked about the processes, et cetera, and that was the direction that the council walked out. But regardless, I stayed out of that conversation because it felt, from my perspective, that was an internal between the 7 council members, and I simply wait for your direction.
But if it was on, if we had to vote to put it on there, shouldn't we have voted to take it off? And we never did that.
I guess what I'm saying is I think that's a conversation between you and the mayor and the rest of council members, not your town manager.
And I would agree. I think that was a legitimate concern. It could have been.
So at this point, you can just delete whatever you want, and if we don't catch it, then it's
No, there was
shame on us for not paying attention.
There's extenuating circumstances. In the retreat, we talked about, she explained that it was not something that you do before the manager retires. That's not professional conduct at that point to do that. So I just thought that was where we were. We all seemed to agree that, okay, we'll wait till we have some action from the manager. I didn't delete it altogether. It's still on my agenda to continue on, but it was not pertinent after that. So I apologize if you misunderstood and that you didn't get the communications you need. But anything that's deleted, I can understand what you're saying.
Okay, well, that's a huge flaw in our process. So we need to do something, and what I brought was that we start approving the agenda for the next meeting, so we know what's going to be on that meeting.
That's not even practical to do that, Vice Mayor.
It is.
No, it's not. It's not, because things come up at the last minute. Things come up quickly. There are things that we can't control when they're going to come up and when they're not going to come up. And everything that's on that, I don't have it, on the tab A, you've already voted on. We've already had someone say, I would like this
Unless
to
it
be on.
disappears.
And if you find that it disappears, then you need to let the mayor know. So, yes, sir.
Things come up at the last minute, so you're basically then having staff scramble and do whatever needs to be done. I don't think that's fair for staff either.
Well, it is, because it has to be done. You just said it has to be done. And so there are things that have to be done that come up, And if you
So the Monday
say,
before, it goes out on Wednesday,
there are things that
something
come
comes up.
Yep.
Give me examples, please.
I don't have any examples right now, but things come up on a regular basis.
Okay.
Did you have a question?
I can piggyback. I mean, I have noticed, especially during the appointment season, we have, especially myself, because I had a few appointments to make that I submitted, on Thursday or something like that. So the clerk of council will go ahead and add those and make the amended agenda. So we do make some amendments. I also do agree with you. I think that the information as far in advance as possible is great, as practical. So I think it's worth a discussion to say, how early can we start the process of getting this information forward so that we can prepare? I think that's probably what you're going for, correct, Vice Mayor? And to piggyback on that, so as essentially what amounts to part-time employees in a sense for council, Tab A has been really valuable for me as a new council member. And so, I was looking at the after speed study was on here and the police construction update, but I don't believe I saw it on the agenda tonight. Were those removed as well?
No, they were not removed.
Okay, because the Tab A I have.
I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, it's not till June.
Okay. Okay. I guess then, if there's some additions or subtractions, it might just be worth even a notification internally to council to say, look, we've moved some stuff around. Because I have this somewhere here that I got it, and it was for March, so, yeah.
Well,
Town manager?
in general, let me just back up for a second. Vice Mayor, I can only think of the one incident that we're now talking about that's been deleted in the manner that it was deleted in fairness. But that being said, items on tab A, unless council gives a specific direction, for example, you wanted this conversation tonight. That was, so it happened tonight. That was your direction. If council doesn't give that direction, you just give a time frame, then I will try to manage that. And sometimes, Councilmember Krukowski, things will move if staff is ready, not ready. Mr. David is going to be gone. Originally, we were going to do your plan review process, I think, on April 7th. He's at training out of the area, so it's going to be 2 weeks later. I need to have that ability to manage the whole process so that we have the items ready for you. If you give us a very specific date to do this on that point, then that happens. But most of the times, and been in this business a long time, council doesn't need it to that extent. But that is up to you. You can, again, you control the cards. You decide. If you want to talk about something 1st of May, then that is what happens. We will figure out how to do it, even if this example, Mr. David is gone. So if that is helpful for you.
Okay.
All right. Is there any future council meetings and agenda topics?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I have one item I'd like to place on the agenda from last meeting. It's the Tuscarora Crossing, Land Bay 4. This is providing the county one of their general services facilities, water and sewer.
All right, this is a reconsideration?
It is. It
Okay.
is. I had a long conversation with the chair of the Board of Supervisors, and in a magnanimous move by myself, I might say, to show how much we want to work together, I'm willing to bring this back up to vote on again tomorrow evening.
Are there 4 hands that would be willing to do that? Okay. So that'll be on the agenda for tomorrow. Anyone else, Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yes, in the future at some point, no time frame, but I think we need to talk about giving money to nonprofits and a process that we need to set up to go through that, because I think this is the 3rd budget year we've included nonprofits and other times throughout the year, and I think there really just needs to be parameters around that, whether it's money, whether it's, we do it once a year at the end of the year when we have leftover money that's going to go to the unassigned fund balance, but we need to come up with some process that will lay out how we go about giving money to nonprofits.
Are there four hands that would like to have that discussion? All right. Anything else? All right, then is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? All right,